This broadcast is brought to you by Colby Brooks with Century 21 Right Pace Real Estate and buyfrombrooks.com. Let Colby Brooks handle all your real estate needs. NEA report is on the air with an arrest made in Florida from a weekend murder investigation in Jonesboro. Authorities think the man was going somewhere else after he had already flown from Memphis to Key West. We'll have the full update on that coming up. Plus, the family of Linda Collins is asking for transparency. A statement issued says that they remain hopeful in the investigation and the prosecution, but they're also hopeful that the new judge will set the case back on track. We'll have their full statement coming up. And Greene County's supposed open investigation that they denied our records request for last week. Well, a leak happened over the weekend that showed us what was happening in the investigation, and it was completed the night of the report being taken. So what's the hang-up? What's taking so long? We'll talk about it next on the NEA report. A suspect arrested in Florida for a Jonesboro murder. That's the news that was broken today on Facebook by the Jonesboro Police Department, who announced the quick arrest into the homicide investigation of Alyssa Reynolds, 50, of Jonesboro, who was found murdered Sunday evening after her family and friends became concerned about her and reported to police. At about 6:45 p.m. they entered the home. They were able to locate the victim, the coroner confirming she had been murdered, and now an arrest of the individual you're looking at. 48-year-old Sean Cohn was arrested in Key West, Florida today. That's just, about 12 hours after this whole incident was at least discovered by police. According to authorities, he flew from Memphis, Tennessee to Florida with an unknown destination, meaning we don't know that he was finished when he was in Florida. He may have been going somewhere else when they got him. But detectives were able to figure his identity out after developing strong leads early in the investigation. Authorities, if somebody's murdered or something happens, they will go through their phones, their emails, their messengers, all of the statuses that they can find, digital, electronic stuff, and they will follow all those leads. It's very hard for somebody to get by with a crime, especially when they know someone. And according to Jonesboro Police, they actually issued a statement to us saying, this marks a new high for us as far as the amount of homicides we've had this year, but we want to stress these are not random acts, according to Public Information Specialist Sally Smith. She said the majority of these homicides we've seen this year are tied to drugs or domestic violence. We don't know if either of those two anchor points, so to speak, are what is coming from this case. We don't know that, but based on the information that she's saying, and based on that quick arrest, there had to be some kind of previous, some level of relationship between the two. They had to know each other. It just seems impossible to believe that they didn't at this point. But we don't know that confirmed. Police just don't make quick arrests like that unless there's something there previously that they can find a suspect on. Police sent out a special thank you to Homeland Security, the Key West Division, along with the Monroe Sheriff's Department of Key West and federal agencies in Florida, who also helped out to make the arrest of the suspect that you're looking at. Sean Cohn, 48, Key West, Florida, was his location of arrest, and he'll now be investigated and brought back to Jonesboro to face whatever charge authorities bring against him over this as they continue this ongoing investigation into a murder Sunday in Jonesboro. The investigation into the murder of Linda Collins and the case that is being brought against the suspect, Rebecca Lynn O'Donnell, remains mired in controversy. Last week, the prosecutor, Henry Boyce, announced he was stepping down. Of course, before that, we've had 4 different judges on the case, too. And the case has also been the subject of a gag order sought by Boyce, signed off by Harold Irwin, and that gag order has prevented the public from knowing what evidence do the authorities have that gives them the probable cause to hold someone for the suspicion of the crime capital murder. We don't know what that evidence is yet. The family must know because of what their statement about the case being strong is, but the public does not know. And there's a lot we don't know, too. We also don't know who the next prosecutor is going to be on the case, at least as of yet, because Henry Boyce requested that another be assigned. This statement was issued by the family of Linda Collins this morning and said, quote, "Due to the changes last week, we felt the need to make a public statement in regard to the status of the murder case of our mother, Linda Collins. We continue to feel very confident in the work the Arkansas State Police and the Randolph County Sheriff's Department have done in the investigation of this case. We want to stress that the case brought by the state against the woman accused is strong." That's coming from the family. Regardless of those who have recused from the case, by the way. And they're making that note in there. But ultimately, they said, we want the focus on this case to remain on bringing justice to Linda. Our hope is that Judge Fogelman will take the actions necessary to set this case back on track and to make it an urgent priority to provide transparency to the public in this case. Thank you for all your continued thoughts, prayers, and privacy to our family as this case moves forward. So that came from the family of Linda Collins. Tragically, it was the family that found her murdered at her home, something that no son should ever have to find of his mother. A horrible case, a horrible tragedy, the community wondering what happened, asking questions. Nobody, at least that I've been able to find with credibility, has questioned whether or not Randolph County Sheriff's Department and Arkansas State Police are working hard on the case. The issue that people have is with the transparency. Prosecutor Henry Boyce, who's honestly been noted to make really questionable decisions in the past on a variety of cases, including his defense of the Walnut Ridge Railroad worker case, in which he wasn't even a part of, but he decided to come out and defend that nonetheless. Well, it's that questionable line of judgment, perhaps, that has this gag order in place to begin with. But now the judge that signed off on the gag order and the prosecutor who wanted the gag order are both gone. And maybe they should have been gone a lot earlier, right? Because FYI, both of those two, Boyce and Irwin, regularly worked in court with Linda Collins' ex-husband, former Circuit Judge Phil Smith. They were both normal, often colleagues, probably classifiable as friends as well, certainly business associates with somebody very much, at least attached to the victim. So many people felt all along that those two should have recused from the case. It finally happened with Boyce doing so now in December. Irwin did it several months back. But the next question is this case even going to be tried in Randolph County? How could it be? With everything that's happened so far, with the news coverage that's taken place, and with everybody in the county knowing who Linda Collins is, I mean, she was literally on the ballot there many times, it almost seems like a change of venue is the very next thing that must take place. But also we hope here in NEA report that what will happen is the judge and whomever the prosecutor is assigned to the case will make the decision to lift this gag order. Tell us why someone is being held and accused of capital murder. When someone loses their freedom for 6 months or a year or 2 years just while waiting for trial, the public should and deserves to know what evidence is being used to hold that person. And if we don't know that evidence, the public should be very concerned. Not because we don't believe in our law enforcement, because we probably all do, most of us, but because there is a process. And when you take someone's freedom, you have to explain why. There is no why yet attached to this, at least not that's been explained to the public. The why has only been explained to the judge and certain people that are very closely associated with this case. The public deserves to know what the reason, what the evidence is that Rebecca Lynn O'Donnell is being held on, in addition to the charges and how that lines up with it. It's a capital murder charge. It doesn't get any more serious than that. And yet we still have a lot of questions that haven't even been approached, much less answered. So we're going to keep following this story on NEA Report. As we were the first to break the case open, we will continue to hopefully find out more details, and hopefully we will help to motivate those that are next going to be in charge of this case to maybe provide a little bit more information to the public and hopefully help quell some of those conspiracy theories that have thrived in this environment of unanswered questions. The Greene County Sheriff's Department said an investigation into one of their deputies, who is alleged to have been a part of a third-degree battery case, was ongoing They said it was open when they denied our records request last week, and now we know it was finished. It was finished the night that the crime was reported because it was a third-degree misdemeanor case, which is finished, in all instances, within just a few hours of the alleged report being made. So what was different in this case? Well, as we've said before, it was a Greene County Sheriff's deputy who was involved, who was the suspect or one of the suspects in the case. But after we received the actual narrative over the weekend, it was leaked to us, the full narrative itself. If you take a look, the last words, the last sentence by the investigating officer: I advised Lieutenant Linderman, with the visible injuries and signs of a struggle inside the residence, I felt like I had enough to charge both parties with domestic battery third degree. The investigation was over right there and then. There was nothing left to investigate. The officer feels like he has a probable cause to charge with a crime. What else is he going to find? Probable cause to not make that decision that he's already reached? It doesn't make much sense, but that's the explanation that's being offered by both the county attorney and the sheriff, claiming that it's an open investigation. Although they've not responded exactly to our request for comments since we obtained this narrative, they have sent out, well, at least the county attorney sent out one additional statement, and she says, in that statement, she says, the Paragould Police Department was forwarded the case for review and investigation. If you have questions about whether it is still an open investigation, that's not up to me, but the investigative agency. She said that, of course, after redacting the file that you're literally looking at. That's still a redacted file. It just so happens that it was leaked to me. And press can publish stuff as long as we obtain it legally. If it's leaked to us, even if the person leaking it did something they shouldn't have done, we can publish it because that's what a free press does. And by the way, welcome to America. We love the free press here. It's an open investigation, according to Sheriff Frank, 6 p.m. on December 4th, 18 hours after the assigned officer wrote that he felt like he had enough to charge both parties with domestic battery third degree. The domestic battery case itself is not a significant case. It's not a big crime. It's more of an issue now because of the way the case has been handled and because of the way the open records request was handled. You can't just deny a records request because one of your deputies is under investigation, claiming that you're still working on it, still trying to figure out what happened, when you've already figured out what happened. Especially, it's a misdemeanor case. I've been told if there's any level of belief that a felony charge could come out of it, that they could still deny the FOIA request into the narrative file. But there is no chance that this is leading to a felony charge, and there's a small chance it's going to lead to a charge, period, based on the way that this case has been handled so far. But that being the case, it's been redacted, and our FOIA request was denied. And then we got the file that showed, quite literally, that the case was finished. The investigation was over. And even though Franks denied our FOIA request, that denial was illegal. And according to W. Whitfield Hyman, attorney at law, everyone who knew about that last sentence in the report and did not respond with this document in the FOIA request is a criminal. The statute and case law is clear, Whitfield said. Very clear, as a matter of fact. That's not just his opinion, that's fact. He's argued these cases many times before, including a freedom of information, a free speech case, by the way, most recently against the city of Walnut Ridge. There was a settlement done in that case for deleting Facebook comments. And Walnut Ridge had to stop deleting the Facebook comments because free speech, free access for the press to public records, these are things that are clear in the law. It's not like these are up for debate. However, 2 law enforcement veterans in Greene County have said that this is a cover-up. They leaked the narrative to me, and they did that in disgust. That's the reason why I have this file, and the reason why we're able to show it to you right now, is because law enforcement themselves are unhappy about why that this is being handled the way that it is, or how that it's being handled. The question of why is another matter entirely. Why is this being so unusually taken care of? It could have been managed and would not have been news if it would have been managed correctly. However, a misdemeanor case for misdemeanor battery, where probable cause was already found to file charges, has now gone to a second department, Paragould Police Department, who doesn't even have authority over rural Greene County. The only way a Paragould officer is going to be able to file charges in rural Greene County on somebody that lives there is if, wait for it, is if the Paragould officer has been deputized. And who's going to deputize him? You already know the answer. The sheriff, Steve Franks. That means the case is still under the sheriff, Steve Franks. It's just being moved around so that they can claim it's being investigated. There's nothing left to investigate. The probable cause, the evidence, it's all in the file. The question is, can you keep from charging another one of your officers with a crime? Because it's not been a good few months in the Greene County Sheriff's Department. Scott Pillow, federal investigation right now. He was their drug investigator who stole from the FBI, allegedly, after a sting operation where he thought he was taking money from a drug dealer. He wasn't. It was the first time, to the best of our knowledge, they had performed that sting operation. They caught him on the first try, too. How about that? He had lost his job at Arkansas State Police. He had retired, but I've been told over the last few days since we've started receiving leaks over this that his retirement may have been a forced retirement and totally different meaning, basically, than what it was perhaps conveyed to us in the press. That being the case, he had only been at the Greene County Sheriff's Department a few months and felt bold enough to allegedly take this money. We also know that Cody Oost was fired September, and the sheriff is not giving us a lot of reason on that either. Not told us why. But that's two of his deputies he's had to fire over misconduct. And will this result in a termination? Probably not. It really wouldn't make much sense for a third-degree battery case to be the end of the world, perhaps, for that deputy. Although maybe it is. It's not my decision. Because the point of this is not what happened with the deputy. The point of this is what happened with the investigation. What happened with releasing the file. And what happened to make a county attorney see the last line, I advised, I felt like I had enough to charge both parties with domestic battery third degree. Why would the county attorney redact that line, which disproves the open investigation exemption? You can't redact lines that disprove your exemption for withholding public records. But that's exactly what happened here. Caught red-handed. I'll never show you evidence of the government being as wrong as I'm able to show you here. And the reason we had that evidence, and I'm going to give them the kudos that they deserve, is because law enforcement in Greene County not happy with this. They are not happy to see somebody in charge taking the law into their own hands, which is how they feel this is being handled. They call it a cover-up. Those are not my words. Those are veteran law enforcement officers, multiple, who have talked to me and told me what they think. Now, sure, I'm fully aware that there was a close election there, and I'm also fully aware that that election went the way of a candidate that was not the incumbent. So there are probably people there that still want to grind axes. I get it. But you got to handle this stuff right. And denying an open records request under a false pretense, which is proven in the last sentence of this report, in the narrative there, that's a crime, as mentioned by W. Whitfield Hyman. So it's a case we're still going to continue following closely. However, the sergeant, Rocky Weber, is on paid administrative leave from the Sheriff's Department right now. Paid vacation. That was confirmed on Friday, and the sheriff said he would still be on that until Paragould's CID is done with the investigation. How long does it take to investigate a third-degree battery case? Well, we have no timetable on how long this investigation into this minor misdemeanor could possibly take, but based on looking at the report, it was finished 5 days ago. We'll keep following this. Thanks so very much for watching tonight on NEA Report. There was a lot of news to get to. In fact, there was even more stuff that we may have to talk about tomorrow or perhaps at a special broadcast later. So be sure you like, follow, subscribe, become a supporter of local news, 99 cents a month, and exclusive access to NEA Report and news you don't get anywhere else too. I'm Stan Morris. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Now you're up to date from NEA Report. Thank you for tuning in.